We can go ahead and get started.
Okay, great. So just wanted to start off by saying welcome everyone to our BioTools Innovator Vanguard non-dilutive funding program information session. That is a mouthful. We're probably going to be using BTI to stand for BioTools Innovator throughout, just FYI, but welcome to our info session. So we wanted to start off with some introductions of the Vanguard team. So I will hand it over to you, Brian, to start.
Hi, I'm Brian Benson. I'm the Senior Vice President of MedTech Innovator and the Program Director for our BioTools Vanguard program. It's been great launching it for the past year. We really evolved it working with BARDA and refined kind of how we operate with BARDA as well as the company. So excited to kind of go over that more with you and some of the new focus areas for this new funding opportunity. So I will turn it over to Heather.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Lucas. I am the program manager for BTI Vanguard. So I work with council mostly to make sure that this program is running smoothly and that the companies have all the support that they need during the program.
And I'm Council. I'm the contracts and grants manager here, and I've been supporting the Vanguard program for the last year. Well, actually, exactly a year. I started a year ago when we first launched this one, so really excited to be here. And last but not least, Manbir.
Hey, all good afternoon or morning. My name is Manbir Singh. I oversee the BARDA Accelerator Network as well as BARDA Ventures programs at BARDA.
Great, thanks. Okay, so here is just a little preview of the stuff that we're going to be talking about today. So starting with the overview of the program. So wanted to spend a couple minutes talking about BioTools Innovator. So this program, BioTools Innovator Vanguard, is under BioTools Innovator, and that is a BioTools accelerator. And you can kind of see a little bit on the screen, but I'm going to walk through it a little bit. So MedTech Innovator is essentially our parent company, or if you want to look at it as the largest umbrella. And under that, we have BioTools Innovator, we have the Asia Pacific group as well. So we have multiple accelerator programs running. And then within BioTools Innovator, we have Vanguard. So that's this program. Within Vanguard, there are two different opportunities that we have. So we have the accelerator portion, which you could call the Vanguard Health Security Track. So that is basically within our BioTools Innovator main accelerator. That's an annual cohort. There is a subset of that cohort that is specifically the Vanguard Health Security Track. And within that, what the purpose of that program is to help with business development, commercialization, growth strategy. Essentially, it's just wraparound type services, particularly related to commercialization. And then the other part of Vanguard is the non-dilutive funding program. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And that's specifically to help with kind of the development, evaluation, validation of different technologies. Again, it's specifically for health security. That's the focus there. And these 6-month projects hopefully will take the technology to its next value inflection point. So again, what we're talking about today is the item in the big red circle. Okay, so as some of you may know, BTI Vanguard, it's a joint initiative with the US government agency BARDA. And BARDA's mission is to provide an integrated, systematic approach to the development of vaccines, drugs, therapies, and diagnostic tools for public health emergencies, also known as PHEs. You can see BARDA-specific program areas are listed on the slide. The one thing to kind of keep in mind through all of this is, again, the focus is on fortifying the nation's health security to be better prepared for public health emergencies if they were to occur. So the BARDA Accelerator Network, or BAN. So BARDA aims to promote innovation through public-private partnerships, cutting edge expertise and funding opportunities. And then towards that end, BARDA has developed this network specifically. There's been 2 iterations of it. The first one from 2018 to 2023, and the second one from 2024 through now. In theory, it goes for about 10 years, so through 2034. And our group has been involved with both versions of the network, so it's been cool to see kind of how it's grown. The mission of the network is to enhance BARDA's preparedness for and response to dynamic or unpredictable threats by fostering the growth and resilience of the global health security innovation ecosystem and enabling the development and adoption of innovative medical countermeasures and related capabilities. So as you can see on the slide, BTI Vanguard is one of 5 hubs. Each is focused on a different priority. Each hub provides wraparound accelerator support services. That's what we were talking about in the last slide with that accelerator program. We also offer development, evaluation, and validation services. That's through the non-dilutive funding, and then rapid response capabilities in case there is a PHE or a need for it. And with this version of the network, so we now have the opportunity to provide accelerated resources and direct funding to innovators like all of you. And again, the focus of today's webinar is on the non-dilutive funding portion of this. And again, it's to support the development, evaluation, and validation of innovative enabling technologies through a 6-month project. Okay, so while our accelerated program focuses on business development and go-to-market support, this particular program is focused more on technical development through engineering projects, data generation, and use case testing, for example. The goal of the 6-month milestone-based funding is to help companies with product development, de-risking, validation of your technology, and accelerate your path to market. Each award is 50 to 200,000, and it's meant to help get your technology to the next value inflection point. And throughout the evaluation phases, which we're going to talk about in a handful of slides here, but throughout the evaluation process from submission to when we decide which companies are going to be funded, we are essentially going to be having subject matter experts that are helping with the evaluations, and then they also are providing direct support to all of you throughout that process. During the project specifically, so if selected for funding, you'll be again having the subject matter expert support throughout that entire 6 months. And what they will do during that time is they'll help with project operation and execution. They'll assist in assessing and mitigating project roadblocks, potentially even some that you don't see coming. And these experts, they've been doing this for many, many years and have a lot of experience with it. So there might be some that they identify that you didn't even see. And they're also going to help with identifying growth area opportunities. Also, you're going to have multiple touch points with BARDA, and those would include progress update meetings, tech watch meetings, and invitations to conferences. The idea being kind of helping with your networking and also visibility opportunities amongst BARDA members, other groups, and investors and things like that. So now I'm going to hand it over to Heather to talk about who should apply.
Great, thank you, Council. So we're going to talk a bit more about what we're looking for the Vanguard Hub. So you want to go to the next slide? All right, so for the Vanguard Hub, we're the enabling technologies hub of the BARDA Accelerator Network. So we're soliciting funding applications for a broad swath of applications, notably bioanalysis innovations, diagnostic discovery and development, therapeutic and vaccine discovery and development, and biomanufacturing. So I'll go into a bit more detail on each of these as to what we're looking for. You can sort of think about these in the context of if there were to be an emerging biothreat, how would the US government, how would the public health response look like for that? So for accelerated bioanalysis of emerging pathogens, how can we identify and understand a biothreat faster to rapidly respond? For diagnostics, we're focused in on that discovery and development pipeline to enhance sample processing efficiency and assay capabilities. So there's another hub within the BARDA Accelerator Network called iCreate that focuses more on point of care platforms. As the Enabling Technologies Hub, we're focused more on the non-patient facing technologies. So what we're looking for related to diagnostics are enabling workflows, novel reagents, instrumentation of the assay, and large-scale diagnostic tools. Then we have the therapeutics and vaccine discovery and development pipeline. So for this, we're looking for how can we develop these solutions more efficiently and effectively? How can we develop it faster and get it to first in human faster? So again, there's another hub within the BARDA Accelerator Network called VITAL that is also related to therapeutics and vaccines. While Vanguard is focused on the discovery and screening tools, simulation tools, platform technologies to test and validate, Vital is focused more on the novel therapeutic assets and drug delivery, so actual implementation of those solutions. And then lastly, we have biomanufacturing, so technologies to increase the speed, capacity, portability, or scalability. How can we quickly deploy these medical countermeasures? So next slide. So we just went over those broad categories that we have within the Enabling Technologies Hub. These are now a list of more specific areas that are of high interest to BARDA. So we'll walk through each of these, but these should be viewed as especially interested and not only interested in. If you believe you have a technology that would be a strong fit for relevant health security applications, we still would encourage you to apply for this funding opportunity. So if we walk through each of these, first we have advanced assays and reagents for omics, cell-based and imaging applications to speed up medical countermeasure development. Drug candidate identification technologies, including in silico models that can identify new or repurposed candidates that address health security threats. AI-based tools and algorithms and automation to develop predictive analytics and/or model process parameters to expedite biopharmaceutical manufacturing of medical countermeasures. Novel sample prep automation or miniaturization tools to speed up development of medical countermeasures and biomanufacturing capabilities. Analytical platforms applicable to multiple vaccines, therapeutics products with a focus on rapid critical quality assurance, analytical testing technologies for drug substances and drug products to harmonize release assays and potency assays. Digital twin approaches using multimodal clinical data, including AI, to enable early identification, endotyping, or treatment guidance for disease severity to enable an early intervention. Integrated bioprocess optimization combined with modeling to establish control strategy and expedite manufacturing of medical countermeasures. And lastly, novel approaches for generation of polyclonal recombinant antibodies to treat infectious diseases. So if any of these topics resonated with you and what you're working on, we would strongly encourage you to apply. This is just the applications and the technology types. Council, if you want to go to the next slide. Now we'll discuss more the proposed project itself. So we just described a broad list of applications and technologies spanning instruments, reagents, assay kits, consumables, and AI-powered platforms. But to be considered for this funding, you'll actually want to propose a technical development, evaluation, or validation project of value to your organization. So this could be a project that advances your primary product and commercial focus, or demonstrates the utility of your platform to be repurposed for ready use in the event of a public health emergency. So as you can see here, there's three different scenarios we envision you potentially falling into for your milestone-based project. You could already have your platform technology established for an existing use case, but you believe it could be expanded to a health security relevant use case. And this could be a project to prove that concept out. You could be working on a breakthrough technology and demonstrating in the early stages that technology is proof of concept. Or you could already have a technology in development, and be advancing that technology to the next value inflection point. So additionally, the project should have a health security focus aligned with BARDA's mission. So solutions relevant to mitigating a chemical, biological, radioactive, nuclear event, or infectious disease outbreak, those would be highly applicable. And these approaches could be biothreat specific, pathogen family focused, or possibly threat agnostic. Okay, next slide. So here are some specific examples based on questions we have received that may help you determine if your technology is eligible for this opportunity. So BARDA primarily develops medical countermeasures to counter acute threats and does not support research and development or acceleration in the areas of oncology or chronic disease. However, as I mentioned, if you're developing a platform or multi-use technology, and you think it could be developed for a BARDA relevant use case, then you could also include data from those other use cases, so long as the BARDA funding would go to support the development in the BARDA relevant use case. Similarly, BARDA is not in the business of research tools necessarily. So if you have a technology that is primarily used by researchers and academics, possibly consider how you can position it for deployment in a decentralized response scenario or mobile field labs. So the key takeaway here is just always consider the medical countermeasure first and how your technology enables that medical countermeasure response to succeed. All right, I'll pass it back to you, Council.
Great. Okay, so now that we've talked through kind of if you should apply, what we're looking for, wanted to spend a few minutes talking about the timeline and the overview of the evaluation phases. So this is a multi-stage process to select companies that are going to have their projects funded. The idea is that we're trying to accelerate the most promising innovations through this opportunity. We're expecting roughly 200 preliminary proposals. That's just based off of last year's numbers. So who knows, we might have significantly more this year. But during phase one, that evaluation, so that's in the gray box there, you will have subject matter experts. And again, the idea is that we have a very large breadth, or they cover like a large breadth of topics. And so you would have, a handful, usually about 5 roughly, that are going to be looking at each proposal. And then they're going to be helping with down selecting to roughly 20 companies that are going to be completing the full proposal. So in that phase one box, you see that there's 20 companies there. You will be invited to submit a full proposal. So if it's one of the top 20 proposals, you'll be asked to submit a full proposal, and that includes a detailed statement of work, budget justification, and a Gantt chart. There's a couple other items, but it's just expansion on most of the things that you've submitted with the preliminary proposal. And then of those 20 companies that submit the full proposal, roughly 10 are going to be selected for phase 2. It's also known as deep dives or guided revisions. And during that phase, you will have an assigned expert who has particular expertise in your technology area. During a 2-week period, you will meet with them a lot. It's in a pretty intensive 2-week period. And the idea is that you will go through your full proposal, address any concerns that the evaluators identified during phase 1, and then also make any refinements to your full proposal. And the idea is that by the end of phase 2, you have the strongest proposal possible to be looked at for funding decisions. So the expert that you are assigned, they are your advocate, and they will make sure that it's as strong of a proposal as possible. This past time there were some companies that made only minor modifications. Some essentially redid their full proposal. So it does vary a lot depending on the recommendations from your expert, feedback you've gotten from evaluators, and also the company as things change and discussions happen. So during phase 3, that's the final one, the yellow box. So we will select 2 to 4 companies that are going to be receiving funding, and they will receive $50,000 to $200,000 to complete their 6-month milestone-based projects. Each awardee will meet regularly with their subject matter expert or the expert assigned to their company, the Vanguard team, and BARDA to provide updates and things like that. There also are reports and things that you would complete. You'll be provided templates and things. So along the bottom, you can see what services the BTI Vanguard team is going to be able to provide throughout the program. So the idea is what hopefully that's kind of showing is that there is a benefit to submitting a preliminary proposal, regardless if you're selected for funding. So throughout the process, as you can see, starting in phase 1, there are certain things that you will be given access to and be able to receive. And the idea is that throughout the entire evaluation process, you are receiving benefit from participating in the program. It's not just only if you get funding. Additionally, you will receive feedback at every phase of evaluation, kind of regardless if how far along you get. And that's something that based off of feedback from last year, the first year that we did this, that was something very appreciative that the companies let us know about because it helped them with either applying, if they're planning to apply for this again, or other funding opportunities that they're seeking out. So this here is the anticipated timeline. Obviously understanding that things happen, so there might be some modifications made to this, but based off of last year and how things went, this is our best guess, and we're hoping we can stick with this. So right now we are accepting preliminary proposals, so you can apply today for that, and we'll be accepting proposals through the end of September. And then we will be screening those preliminary proposals during kind of throughout October. And then phase 1, we anticipate that taking place in November. So that's as one of the roughly 20 companies that we will invite to submit a full proposal, and we will send you that email, and then you'll say yes, hopefully. And then roughly about 2 weeks or so, you would then submit the full proposal. Once the full proposals are submitted, we will then evaluate those. And from those, we will select roughly 10 that will be completing deep dives, also known as the guided kind of revisions. That's when you are paired with a specific expert and they kind of help you refine your proposal to make it as strong as possible before funding decisions are made. And so that period will take about 2 to 4 weeks to take place, and that's going to happen in January. And then at the end of January, we will kind of go through everything. And when I say everything, we'll look at your refined full proposal, kind of all the feedback that we've gotten from evaluators throughout the entire evaluation process, conversations with BARDA, all of those types of things to make funding decisions. And then projects and awards will start in March. And again, the idea is that most projects are 6 months. If you think you can do it in 4, that's fine too. But for the most part, we expect 6 months. So that's why it shows August of next year. And then I'm going to hand it back over to you, Heather.
Great, thanks, Council. So how do you apply? Well, you're going to apply using our BioTools Innovator portal. We have the link shared right here. This is what the landing page will look like once you've started an application. So you'll start a new application by clicking that BioTools Innovator Vanguard funding solicitation button. And then once you have an application in progress, that's what this will look like here. It'll pop up under your applications. So you want to be sure to complete and submit that application by the end of September. Applications will be due on September 30th. So next slide. So now we'll go into a bit more detail as to what that application is going to look like for this first phase. So these are the preliminary proposal components listed here. So first you'll provide some background information regarding the company and the technology. Then you'll provide a 1,000-word proposal abstract. So that will be the meat of this preliminary proposal. You'll cover topics such as the problem and solution, innovative solution and competitive advantage, technology status and supporting data and feasibility if you have that, the technical approach for the development project that you're proposing, the manufacturing approach for the technology, as well as any regulatory pathways that are applicable, and information regarding the intellectual property of the technology. And then in a subsequent section, you'll provide a brief overview of the use of funds for the project that you're proposing. So this would be where you submit your funding request within the bounds of 50 to 200K, and you'll provide an explicit description as to how you would like to use those funds towards advancing your technology. And then lastly, you'll include a brief pitch deck. So this will be a pitch deck that the BARDA reviewers, as well as subject matter expert reviewers, will use to gain more information about your company, your technology, and how that fits within BARDA's mission space. So you can basically think of this pitch deck as your pitch to BARDA as to why they should fund you, and why you're a good candidate for their portfolio. So next slide. So what makes a strong proposal? We'll go through a bit more detail here as to what makes your preliminary proposal stand out from the crowd. So first and foremost, clearly communicate your technology's capabilities. Be specific. You don't want to necessarily be too generic and claim to achieve everything. It's really helpful for us to understand the full capabilities of your technologies as well as the limitations. But when you're identifying a potential health security application, try not to be overly specific and potentially pigeonhole yourself. So one way I like to think about this is by establishing your technology's uses and capabilities, you're building the boundaries of what those potential health security applications may be. Then when you're going into how you could apply your technology to a health security application, try not to just limit it to a singular use case. Try to be broad enough to fill what the boundaries are that you established with your technology's capabilities. And then by establishing that specificity around your technology and broad relevance to health security, you can then set the BARDA reviewer up to envision how your technology fits into their specific priorities, some of which you may have not previously considered. So basically set them up to envision how your technology best matches their future goals with BARDA. So then regarding the use of funds, please be explicit. You don't want to provide so little information that reviewers question the budget efficiency and allocation. So again, it's the 50 to 200K range. Please stick within those bounds. And we also recommend not saying that, well, I'm just going to use all of the funds to buy this one really expensive piece of equipment. Try and keep it diverse and relevant to the specific project that you're working on, and make sure that it's going to be used to advance the company to that next value inflection point. And then lastly, regarding the pitch deck, try to make it digestible to a broad audience, as we mentioned. Make sure that you clearly communicate the technology, the business strategy, as well as the potential alignment with BARDA. And for all of these, in terms of the preliminary proposal, please also be realistic regarding the project's feasibility under the time and budget constraints. So within that 6-month window and within the budget request that you have. So now we can go back to council for some final key takeaways.
Yeah, so we've thrown a lot of information at you, and so we just wanted to spend a minute or two with the key takeaways based off of what we've learned from this last year and what we think will help you all the most. So again, it's up to 200,000 in non-dilutive funding. The idea is to advance your technology. And again, it's a technology that we can show, or you can show, alignment with BARDA's health security priorities. Make sure that you are framing your project around the medical countermeasures it supports, or what you are claiming it supports, and how your technology would strengthen that response specifically. Framing is critical here because I know potentially a lot of you have technologies like platform technologies, for example, that could be applicable to a lot of different things, which is wonderful, but making sure that you're framing it such that, like, oh, BARDA needs this and they need it now, not just, oh, we can do everything, because that can come across as like, do you really know which path you want to go down? So kind of what Heather was alluding to, the Goldilocks, or trying your best with the Goldilocks, like you want to be, you can apply to a lot, or it's applicable to a lot of different things, but also you're specific enough that you aren't just making it up. You don't want it to come across that way. Keep in mind that BARDA likes to invest in commercially viable businesses with a clear market potential. So as you're writing your preliminary proposal, keeping that in mind. And then also, you want to make sure that you're showing how the project will kind of advance your company and drive your company towards the next major value milestone, or the term we keep using is, next value inflection point. Okay, so that was kind of our spiel. So we just wanted to say thank you to everyone for joining, and that we are looking forward to your proposal and welcoming hopefully some of you to the next cohort. We're now going to open it up to questions. So you can type those in, and then there's some information on here, again, when applications are due, how to contact us if you do have questions. And then also there's a QR code there that will take you to the website, which provides all this information as well as the link to the specific application. So what questions do we need to answer?
So here's a good one. What can the budget include? Anything other than salaries, materials, contractors, consultants, fringe, indirect?
So it can include all of those things. And the one thing we want to, there are not specific bounds on it. Obviously, we've given recommendations regarding equipment, not putting a $200,000 or $150,000 piece of equipment on there. But it's obviously within reason. And if you can show how it, you need it for this specific project. So what we've seen in the past, primarily personnel, materials and supplies, those have been the two largest categories typically based on last year, but there are not specific bounds on that.
And the idea is it's really to fund de-risking activities. So to either you're hiring a third-party firm to help with some validation or feasibility studies, bringing in materials for your lab or your team to do some of those activities, or develop the prototype to do the de-risking. So it really, again, depends on what is necessary to help validate the technology in a particular application and advance it towards commercial viability. And again, within that specific scope, the more detail you can provide, the better. If most of your budget is going towards a piece of capital equipment, it's definitely not ideal, particularly because the government doesn't want to own your equipment. And if they are paying for it, there is some shared ownership as a result, unfortunately. So something definitely to consider as you're proposing that, to keep that in mind. But yeah.
So the next question we have is, can the project still be within a university, i.e. pre-spin out?
Yes, that's not a problem at all. And I see one, restrictions on percent of money spent for non-US entities / partners. There's not a restriction there. We are kind of agnostic to, well, even if there are companies on here that are kind of internationally based, that's fine. But the only thing I will say about restrictions would be there are a handful of countries that, you know, the US has kind of an embargo. And so there might be some restrictions there. I think like Sudan, Iraq, Iran, something like that. But for the most part, there are no restrictions on that. Okay, yep, non-US companies can apply. That is not a problem at all. Completely agnostic in terms of geography. Okay, non-US based uni project, answered that one, not a problem. Regarding the budget, can we have a subcontract? Yes, again, not an issue with that. Just make sure you're clearly articulating it. Obviously, we don't want to see, you know, funds that during the evaluation process, if we're like, why are you spending this much on this thing? We'll ask that and we'll get clarification there, but there's not an issue there because we do understand as startups that there might be specific expertise you need to execute this project, and that it might make sense to kind of go outside instead of hiring a full-time person that has that very specific expertise. If I've missed, feel free, anybody to Heather or anybody to shout out if there's any I've missed.
So I guess one thing we can speak to as well regarding projects still within a university pre-spin out stage. So for this funding solicitation, while we're looking at early stage startups, we are looking to make sure that the project is well de-risked and that the company is not necessarily relying on this funding to survive. We would like to see that the company does have some legs on its own to stand on, and that this would just be supporting that development and accelerating it to the next stage, as well as demonstrating its capabilities within the BARDA scope.
Thanks for that clarification. I think I saw a hand raise. I didn't catch the name. But if you can type it in, that would be super helpful, just so that we can make sure that we have a record of all of it.
So is there much flexibility on the project delivery timeline? So for that, we are trying to keep it within that 6-month project period. That being said, there's the possibilities for delays during the project, but that is part of the reason why we match startups with SMEs to help guide them and to make sure that they're able to execute on those milestones on time and on schedule. So we do try to keep the projects within that specific timeline. So the next question we have, can you talk a bit more about what types of solutions you are seeking in the diagnostics category? We have a rapid assay solution that helps improve workflow efficiency and are trying to determine if it's a fit. Yeah, so in terms of the diagnostics, again, we're focused in, we do have 2 hubs working in the diagnostic space within the BARDA Accelerator Network. With Vanguard specifically, we're focused more on the platform itself, novel reagents, the instrumentation, basically everything up until the point that the diagnostic is patient facing. So if you think about it in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic, we would be looking at technologies that were used in those decentralized labs for mass testing, whereas some other companies that were working on more of the lateral flow assays, those would probably fall under more of the iCreate purview, things that could be deployed at mass at a low cost for individual testing at home. I hope that helps clarify that.
Looks like we've one, how to best decide if we're accelerator track or non-dilutive grant track, i.e. what gate should we have passed to be considered eligible for non-dilutive. So that's going to vary pretty widely, depending on the technology and the company and everything else. So one thing that I don't know if we actually talked about this is I would suggest, if you aren't sure, go on and apply for the non-dilutive funding, because we will look at all of them. And if there is a particular proposal that we look at and we're like, okay, maybe not the best fit for non-dilutive funding right now, we will go on and kind of essentially move them over to the accelerator, which that's going to be opening October, November. Heather, I don't know if the exact date's been determined, but in a couple months. And so that way you're not having to like essentially start all over, and you also have already kind of joined our ecosystem, if that makes sense. Also, on top of that, if kind of what Heather was alluding to, there are kind of 2 hubs handling diagnostics, and there's some other overlaps just because we are the enabling technologies hub. With our preliminary proposals, we can easily kind of transfer them from one hub to another. So if you are unsure if you fit better into this particular one or another one, I would probably go on and apply, because if when going through it, we're like, oh, actually you'd be a better fit for Vital, then we can provide that to Vital. And so you're not starting all over again or having to scour kind of the internet to figure out exactly what you should apply to. So just FYI
But
on that.
yeah, I think as council mentioned, I would recommend, based on what you've described, to apply to the Vanguard Dev funding opportunity. You'll get feedback and guidance on next steps, but at least you'll have a better sense for other application opportunities. And since there's time till the Vanguard Accelerator opens in October, I would say it's definitely worth the effort to do that. Sepsis. So I see from Greg, regarding sepsis and BARDA's interest in that. Again, as Heather mentioned, as long as the technology isn't necessarily a diagnostic patient facing, then there's possibility for us, of interest to the enabling tools space. Again, understanding how this is going to help in that regard, not necessarily from a sample collection per se, but as long as it's within that scope. Sepsis typically isn't in BARDA's hot window, but there's obviously, again, infectious disease detection in areas that may be correlative to that. So I would recommend looking at the AOIs listed on the website. You can click on the BioTools Vanguard website. I think the link was posted down there in the chat. And there's also a link to BARDA's AOIs, which you can try to glean a little more insight on.
So the next question is regarding, is it an exclusion criteria if the company is too far along? So here they're specifically referring to a company at the C to Series A stage. That would definitely fit with under the purview of this funding solicitation. That would be fine to apply at this stage. Companies that are more mature, often apply and start working on an application not specific to their main commercial product, but an application that is maybe an extension of their commercial product. That's another way for these companies to utilize this funding, is to validate that their technology can also be used for this health security application. That's a great way to get your foot in the door as well with working with BARDA and the US government.
Yeah, it's definitely not a restriction. I would say, again, it's more encouraged, especially it ensures the viability of the technology. For us, we want to see these things reach the market. This de-risking level of support that we're able to offer obviously isn't going to solve all of the problems of an early stage company. But if a company has done some work on validating an initial product and looking to reapply or apply that into a new indication relevant to the BARDA areas of interest, that's definitely something that we take into consideration. So I would take that as a possible benefit more so than a negative towards companies at the later stage.
Any additional questions from anybody?
Yeah,
Okay.
so there's a question about the funding and the accelerator. So the funding opportunity, so there's the direct award funding opportunity through the Vanguard Dev, and then we have the Vanguard Accelerator and through BioTools Innovator. That's in October. The accelerator, there is some funding competitions, so there's possible for award prizes, but I would say it's not for not all the companies get funding. The main thing for the accelerator is really to help advance the technology and be better positioned or prepared, possibly for a funding opportunity. I would definitely say if you're trying to consider either or, I would recommend both, mostly because you'll get feedback from one to help better position you for the other, if that is an ideal situation for you. So, and again, the Vanguard Dev initial application is relatively straightforward, so it should not take you days to complete, but definitely worth the initiative to apply, get feedback, and then determine how best to position yourself. But we do have companies in both the accelerator and the funding opportunity, and we do see the benefit of having companies going through the accelerator to better position them for the funding opportunities as we continue to do this program.
So if you haven't already, you can also go ahead and scan the QR code on this slide. That will take you right to the application portal. And you can also find the link to the application portal on our website as well. So if you go to the Vanguard page, you should see an Apply Now button, and that will take you right to the application portal. So make sure to get your applications in by Tuesday, September 30th. And we look forward to reviewing them. And if you have any questions, you can also contact us at the Vanguard email listed here on this slide. We're happy to answer any questions that you have after this workshop. The recording for this workshop will be provided. It will be uploaded on our website following the webinar today.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining. We will give you 9 minutes back. But yeah, feel free to reach out if you have questions. Feel free to kind of go to our website for more details, and we're here to help, and we look forward to receiving your preliminary proposals.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Good luck.
everyone.